Morning, everyone. Apologies for the late start. We had a few technical difficulties on this morning. So we had to resend all the invites. I made an announcement as well. I hope you saw that. So we had to invite everybody again for the masterclass. So we are 17 guys at the moment. So just give us a few more seconds just to let the other people join as well, and then we'll get right into it. Thank you. Morning, everyone. We are slowly but surely getting there. Again, apologies for the late start. We are at 33 attendees now, so at least we have an audience. So just give us a few more minutes. I'm looking to start about 9:30, just to ensure that we've given everybody a chance to join and to catch up. So stay with us. We'll be there shortly. Thank you. All right, while we wait, guys, just introduce myself so long. I'll do it again as we go along and as the people join. My name is Danie Nel, as you can see on the slide in front of you. And today's masterclass will be regarding rescues. Now, rescues are a very important part of work at height, and it's also a very big subject and a field that you can go into very deeply and in a lot of detail. But the purpose of today's masterclass is, again, if you haven't joined previous ones, the purpose of today's masterclass is not to replace any work at height training or rescue training or anything like that. It's purely a informational discussion for your own enlightenment and furthering of your knowledge. So for guys who are already competent and qualified rescuers, this will be aimed to deepen your understanding of how rescues work and how they should work, and details that you might have missed, especially if you are only dealing with one type of rescue or one type of work at height. So hopefully we can broaden your spectrum and broaden your understanding of rescue as a whole. And then for the guys who aren't competent rescuers and are looking to get into work at height rescue, this will give you a good idea of what to expect from rescues, where to begin, the fundamental principles of rescue, how to get started, and what to focus on. So again, please don't think that this will replace any form of work at height training or rescue training, but we will be providing the attendees with attendance letter of attendance for this masterclass, just to prove that you have attended it and yeah, hopefully you've learned something. So again, I think we'll start about past, just to give the guys a bit more, a few more minutes to join. So for 4 minutes, 5 minutes, and then we'll get started. All right, guys, I think I'll get started, and as the guys join, I'll introduce myself again and perhaps repeat some of the more important parts of this. So again, for those new attendees, my name is Danie Nel. We'll be doing the Rescue Masterclass today. Again, apologies for the late start, but we might just push it until 11 instead of 10:30 today. So hopefully you guys are all comfortable and ready to go. So before we get started, just a bit of housekeeping. If you are on the Microsoft Teams platform, on the right-hand side, you'll see there's a live event Q&A, and then it gives you the options of featured questions and my questions. Now, under my questions, you can send me a message, you can ask me a question, you can if you can't hear me, if you want me to slow down or say something again or to go back a slide or something, you can send me a message there. Please just, where you see there your name optional, it says, just put your name in there so I know who I'm talking to, and then I can address you personally if I'm answering your question. You'll see the my questions. You'll be able to see the questions you've asked and the questions that if I reply on that, it'll display there. But under the featured questions, if I publish a question, then that'll be the questions asked by everybody in the session. So don't get confused between the two, but please do get in contact if there's anything wrong, or if you want to give me your opinion, or if you want to ask something or tell me something, please do. We want to make this as interactive as possible. Okay, then just for those of you who are unfamiliar with us, again, my name is Danie Nel. I am employed with Gravity Training. Now, Gravity Training is a member company of Gravity Group as a whole, alongside Gravity Access and Gravity Gear. So Gravity Training specializes in work-at-height training, rope access, fall arrest, rigging, full position plan development, gear inspection, ladder use, those kind of things. Gravity Access specialize in the installation of access systems, anchor points testing, any access solutions that you might have, you can contact them to help you. And then Gravity Gear also specialize in selling of work-at-height equipment, fall arrest, rope access, rigging, everything you might need to work at height and to do it safely. We also have our own gear brand, Gravity Gear, which is EN certified as well. So it's great quality gear at very affordable prices, harnesses and lanyards and work belts and so forth. Then, if you want to know anything more about Gravity and about what we do, please feel free to send in an email to info@gravitygh.co.za for any queries or questions. If you just want to find out more, and then if you want to book some training, please contact bookings@gravitytraininggh.co.za, and our bookings department will assist you with quotes and registration forms and the dates for our trainings and our courses. So please feel free to contact them. And then furthermore, you can always go and visit our website, gravitygroupholdings.com, and that will give you access to Gravity Training, Gravity Access, and Gravity Gear's website as well. And then you can download brochures, price lists, product lists, anything like all the documents there. And then please do follow us on social media as well, Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. For those of you who are new to these masterclasses, please be aware that after this is finished, we take the recording of the masterclass and we upload that to YouTube as well. So usually, depending on internet speeds and stuff like that, we either upload it directly after this masterclass or somewhere over the weekend. So if you follow us on Facebook or Instagram, as soon as the video is live on YouTube, we'll send a post on Facebook or Instagram, and then you can review everything and you can share it to your colleagues or to your employees or whoever you want to. So subscribe, follow, all that, and you can stay in touch with us there as well if you want to contact us for training or bookings or any general queries, you're welcome to contact us via social media as well. Okay, so just the agenda for today's masterclass. Talking about rescues, as I said, it's quite a vast topic and something that's quite intricate and esoteric. But we're going to try and break it down into the fundamentals that underpin the whole thing. And then we're going to look at a bit of the details. But again, I want to stress the fact that this does not replace any work it out training or any rescue training. So we're going to start with the legal requirements behind rescues. Always an important part, an important facet of work at height that has to be focused on and has to be obeyed, seeing as that there are so many different interpretations of the law that sometimes something falls through the crack, and somebody who's not trained or not a specialist in work at height sometimes has the wrong end of the stick. So just going to quickly look at the legal requirements, and then I would like to discuss the risks involved with rescue, and especially the risks that insufficient rescue poses to a site, and why it's so important to have proper rescue and rescue planning on your site and for your employees. And then we're going to quickly look at the rescue requirements. That's just a restatement of the legal requirements, but we'll get into that in a bit more detail. Then we'll have a short tea or coffee break, and then we'll go into the types of rescues and then planning for rescues. Now, it might seem like a short agenda, but as you'll see, it's quite a meaty topic, and a topic that will keep us busy for a while. And then team coffee, and then your questions. We'll do a Q&A session afterwards as well. So, first of all, the legal requirements. Now, again, guys, apologies if you are, or apologies, but if you are outside of South Africa, this is the South African Construction Regulations, or the Occupational Health and Safety Act of South Africa. So, if you are outside of South Africa, obviously your own legal requirements apply, but the South African OSH Act is quite well written, and it's instructive nonetheless to see the phrasing and the wording they use and the requirements they put on work at height as a whole. So for those of you who have missed the previous masterclasses, Johan Strauss did one. The very first one actually was about the pitfalls to avoid when developing a fall protection plan. Now, because of that, I won't go into too much detail with the legal aspect of this. He did quite a good job explaining everything regarding fall protection plans and risk assessments and so forth. So again, if you want to go check that out, head over to our YouTube channel. But I felt that it's important to mention at this point that the construction regulations 10.2a, 10.1a says that a contractor must have a fall protection plan, and then 10.2a refers to the risk assessment. So it says a risk assessment of all work carried out from a full risk position, and the procedures and methods used to address all the risks identified per location. So two things I want to highlight there is, first of all, the importance that it says a full risk position. Okay, it does not mention a specific height. It does not mention 2 meters, 1.5 meters. Then you have to do a risk assessment. Okay, so it says a full risk position. So that refers to any position where a person can fall off from or into something. So we go into a bit more detail. I did a masterclass on low-level heights as well, which is also on our YouTube channel if you want to go check it out. So you have to have a risk assessment to cover all work done from all full risk positions. Okay, so, and then you have to address those risks per location. Okay, so that's something that you'll see ties into our rescue discussion quite nicely, is that people often take a site and then they go, so well, work at height will happen on this site, and then they focus on, okay, use full rest equipment or use rope access equipment, but they don't factor in the different risks that are per location on that site, unprotected edges, rooftops, fragile surfaces, those kind of things. Okay, so when you have a risk assessment, it has to cover all the locations on your site. Now, the importance for this, for our discussion at least, is that per location where a guy can fall, you need to have a rescue plan so you can rescue him from that location. So many people will be trained in a rescue, a follower's rescue, say, and then they say, well, if the guy falls, then we'll use that rescue. But they do not consider if that rescue is applicable for all locations on site and if it can be used for all the areas where a person can fall. Okay, so that's something we'll look at later, and where some of the rescues fall short in terms of what you need. Okay, so that's the first part. We have to focus on having a rescue that's per location. Okay, so that being said, when we have our risk assessment, we identify the risk, we assess the risk, and then we control the risk. Okay, so we identify that the guy can fall over the side of a roof, or through a roof, or off a tower, or into a shaft, or whatever it may be, and we assess it and say, okay, that's a high risk situation. We don't want the guy to fall or to be suspended or to be incapacitated. So then we control it by giving him training, making sure he has a medical certificate, medical fitness, ensuring that the guy's trained, he has the correct PPE, he has the correct supervision, he has the correct training, all those kind of things. Okay. Now that last bubble you see there, the monitoring and rescue one, that is your backup plan. So obviously, if your risk assessment is written correctly and by a competent person, and it's implemented by a full person, by an implementer, and your supervisors adhere to the procedures and protocols set out in that risk assessment, then the guy won't fall off the side of a building because he would adhere to the exclusion zones, he would adhere to the he would use his work restraint system, whatever it may be, correctly, and okay. But now there's always a chance that something goes wrong on site. As we always say, you can't make a work at height site 100% safe. Okay, there's always a risk of a fall, there's always a risk of something going wrong. So with all those controls in place, if something does go wrong, you have to have a form of recovery or rescue in place so that you can have you can save that guy or rescue that guy from wherever he is. So again, when we go into this rescue discussion, I want you guys to remember that it's your backup plan. It's your plan B. You should never say, well, if the guy falls, at least we can rescue him. Your risk assessment should still be written in such a way that it prevents a fall from happening in the first place. Okay, or prevents a person from being incapacitated in the first place. We want to avoid doing rescues on site. By that I mean it should never be necessary. The other controls and mitigations that you put in place for your workers and your employees on site should be so well thought out and so well implemented that a full incident should never occur. Okay, but if it does, you have to have a plan to get that guy back to a safe area. Okay, so keep that in the back of your mind. This does not, the risk we'll discuss and the solutions we'll discuss in this masterclass are above and beyond the controls you put into place for preventing the fall in the first place. Okay, so please keep that in mind, but it's very important that you do recognize the fact that you always have to have a plan B, and you always have to have a redundancy in your risk assessment that if something goes wrong, or if a guy passes out due to a freak accident or whatever it may be, there has to be a solution and a plan to rectify that. Okay, so the risks involved for us. If a person, as I said, becomes incapacitated on your site, and by incapacitated I mean he faints, he falls, he gets a vertigo, where he's so afraid of heights he can't move anymore, he gets a panic attack, he breaks a leg, he sprains an ankle, anything that will prevent that guy from climbing down or getting to an area of safety as per his training, using his equipment correctly, anything like that, that guy has to be rescued. Okay. If a person is incapacitated and you cannot rescue him, that guy can die. Okay. It's morbid to think about it like that, but that is the reality of rescues, and that's why such an important part of work at height and of what we do is that if a rescue plan or a rescuer fails at his job, people die. Okay, so as morbid as that sounds, that's how important this is, and that's the priority that we focus on here. So a person being incapacitated. Now, I especially split the two, the person incapacitated and the fallen person. I'll explain that in a second. But people often only think of rescues in terms of a person that has fallen and being suspended on some form of fall arrest equipment or fall arrest system. And of course, that's an important part of it as well. But you also have to think of a guy sitting down on top of a crow's nest somewhere, just being panic-stricken and unable to move. That person has to be rescued as well. He's not suspended on something, so your rescue plan now has to change a bit, or you have to have your rescuers adapt the rescue in certain ways. So we'll get to the training requirements and stuff later. And then, of course, a fallen person is also an incapacitated person, but there you have the issue of a guy being suspended on a fall arrest system or rope access system of some sort. Now, the reason why that is separate for me in this discussion is the fact that a fallen person, you have to sort of predict and preempt where that guy can fall from. So it's not always a nice and easy, straight up and down situation like we do in training, or at least in your elementary beginner course, introductory rescue courses. Sometimes it's complicated. Sometimes the guy is over an edge. Sometimes he's in a confined space. Sometimes he's in between bracketry or machinery or something like that. So when you plan for a rescue, when you write a rescue plan, we'll talk a bit more in detail later, is ensure that the areas where a guy can fall from, you cover that as well, and you ensure that the rescues that you're using can function and operate correctly and safely on that area and in that work site. Okay, so those are the two main concerns for a rescuer. Now, the risks that I've come across that the guys ignore, and by these last three bullets, I'm more referring to the risks that will make a site more dangerous than it has to be. Okay, so it's guys on site with no rescue plan. They did not preempt, they did not predict or prepare for a rescue. They assume that nobody will fall, that nobody will get injured, so they don't need a rescue. That is extremely dangerous. As we said earlier, freak accidents happen. It doesn't matter how skilled you are, how experienced you are. There's always a chance that something goes wrong on your site and somebody falls and can't get down or breaks a leg and gets stuck on a towel or something. Okay, so you always have to have a rescue plan. Again, that's a legal requirement. As we saw earlier in CR 10.2E, you have to have a rescue plan. That's the long and short of it. For those of you who are in countries that don't have legislation like that, you can take that as best practice. Okay, you have to have a rescue plan on site. We'll get to the details of the rescue plan a bit later, but for now, not having a rescue plan on site is just irresponsible, to be honest. Then the next two sort of flow into each other. I've seen guys on site who they do have a rescue plan, but the rescue plan is beyond the scope of the rescuers on site. So they will have full arrest and basic rescue technicians on site, for example, who are trained in a ratchet rescue, for example. But then the rescue that they actually need on site will be something like a 3-to-1 pulley system or cableway or something more advanced. So then the rescue plan can't be implemented by the rescuers on site, so that makes the rescue plan redundant. Okay, so always ensure that you have two options when we are discussing this. Is you can either see it as, okay, you should only have rescue plans that can be implemented by the guys you have, by the rescuers you have, and then that will limit your work sites and the type of jobs you can go and do. So because it has to factor in where the guy can fall from or offer into, your rescue has to be applicable, and therefore those rescuers will be competent to do that. The other way of seeing it is that you have to employ rescuers of a certain level of competency to implement whatever rescue plan you've decided on for your site. Okay, so you can either bring the complexity of your rescue plan down to match the competency of your rescuers, or you can upskill your rescuers until they can perform the rescues that you require. Okay. Now, again, just as a side note, there are freelance guys available. If you do have a complex site or something that's a bit beyond the scope of your trainers, and it's a once-off, perhaps it's not something you do on a daily basis, and it's not part of your routine tasks, Gravity Access and Gravity Training do offer supervision for sites and operations, so that a higher skilled rescuer will be on site to supervise a team of technicians if that's needed. Okay, and the last one is the inadequate equipment. Now, that, as I say, it sort of plays into the incompetent rescuers one. Again, a lot of people will write a rescue plan, brilliant in theory. They'll have all the steps, the SOP, everything, word for word. The SOP will be correct in every sense. The risk assessment then says, well, the site's safe because we have a great rescue plan. The guys go to site and they don't have the equipment to perform that rescue. Okay, especially with the more complex things, you'll see later, there's a lot of equipment, or some of the rescues can require a lot of equipment. And if you miss something, or if you have the wrong type of equipment, that rescue is not possible anymore. So again, it's extremely important that the rescuers and the rescue plan developer, or the fall protection plan developer, whoever writes your rescue plan, are in communication as to they understand exactly what they need and who they need to do this rescue. Okay, so that's something that will have to be addressed within your own company. I'll give you a few training course recommendations at the end of the presentation, and I'll explain to you the differences with what you learn in each course, so you can have an idea of what you need for your guys. Okay, so these are the things that you have to consider when developing a rescue plan before you go to site, sort of preparing for your work and your work at height. And I'll go through these when we go to the planning for a rescue. I'll reiterate some of these points, and I'll try and explain to you what I meant by each one and how to address it for a given site or example. Right. Now, with all that being said, I'm going to just go back a step, back to the legal requirements. The CR10-2E says you have to have a rescue plan detailing the necessary procedure, personnel, and suitable equipment required to effect a rescue of a person in the event of a fall incident, to ensure that the rescue procedure is implemented immediately following the incident. Okay, so again, that's the legal requirement in South Africa. If you're international, you can take it as best practice, as I think it's quite well written and quite well worded and phrased. So if we go back one step, you'll see the incompetent rescuers, or the no rescue plan, incompetent rescuers, and inadequate equipment is addressed in this legal requirement. Okay, you have to have a plan detailing the procedure, the personnel, and the equipment needed to effect the rescue. Okay, and something that is overlooked when people are reading this paragraph is the procedure to implement immediately. Okay, so you shouldn't have a rescue that takes 3 hours to set up, or a guy driving back to the office to get your rescue kit or anything like that. It has to be on site with all the equipment, with all the personnel needed, so that if something goes wrong, you can do that rescue immediately. Okay. Now I know this legal paragraph refers to a full incident specifically, but I would advise you to extend this definition to any form of a person incapacitated, as it's for all intents and purposes the same situation if a guy can't climb down from height or get stuck in a tower or something. Okay, so the two legal requirements that we talked about, the risk assessment one, CR102A, and the CR102E, I want to combine them, and I want you to think of them as sort of one concept. As we saw with the this risk flow chart, your risk assessment, you identify your assessment control, and then you have to have a rescue plan. But I want you guys to sort of take that last one and break it up into the same 3 steps: identify, assess, and control. So when we get to the rescue, we take the rescue as its own risk and its own event, and we identify the need for a rescue, we identify the risk of a rescue, we identify the areas on site where a guy can fall, where a guy can get injured. We then develop a rescue plan, and we check if that rescue plan is applicable for each of those areas, for each of those situations and scenarios. And if it's not, we write 2, 3, 4, 5 rescue plans until we have a rescue plan and a rescue for each scenario that can go wrong on site. And we'll get into that in a bit more detail in the next section. So just before the tea break, the rescue requirements, and this is a summary of what we've done up to now, is for your rescue and your rescue requirements on site, you need to have a procedure stipulating which rescue you'll do, how you do it, step by step, where do you connect what, how many people do you need, okay? The personnel is not only how many people do you need, it's also what the qualification should be. You can get away with, for example, if you have a straightforward site, you need 2 guys with full risk and basic rescue. If you have more complex sites, you need advanced full risk rescue or level 2 or level 3 rope access technicians. Okay. Well, do you need 2 level 3s or 4 level 3s or 1 level 3 and 2 level 2s? Okay. So remember that is also part of your rescue planning, is not only the amount of people you need to do a rescue, but the competencies of those people. And then, as we said earlier as well, the competency is obviously, the equipment is quite important as well. So in your rescue requirements, and as we go through the next section about planning for risk assessment, I want you guys to keep this in the back of your mind when we discuss each scenario. We have to look at or think of the procedure, the personnel, the equipment, procedure, the personnel, the equipment, and I'll try and highlight the important parts or the interesting parts as we go along. Okay, guys, I think that should bring us up about half an hour. So I think we'll have a quick tea and coffee break. Let's make it 5 minutes, or let's make it, we'll be back at 10:05. That's on my watch. Okay, so 10:05 South African time. Okay, thank you very much, guys. See you in a second. Right, welcome back, guys. I hope you all had an enjoyable break. So, for the next section, we'll start discussing the types of rescue. Now, again, I'm fully aware of the fact that there are hundreds and thousands of different types of rescue, but I'll try and simplify them into 3, 4 categories, and then we'll build on that definition as we go along. Okay, so first of all, we're going to discuss the types of rescue that we have and how they work and what they mean for us, and then we'll go into the planning part of things and how to combine this knowledge with your sites. So first of all, we're going to look at probably the rescue that you guys are the most familiar with, and most of you are familiar with, the lowering rescue. And the image there is an example of the ratchet rescue that we train at Gravity. So the idea behind the ratchet rescue, sorry, get my laser pointer or my pen, is that the lowering part is this descending device with the rope. Okay. Now the reason why we have this ratchet system is to lift the guy off whatever he's suspended on. So if he is suspended on a work belt, a lifeline, a shock absorber, whatever it might be, we use this to lift the guy up only slightly, only to get his weight off of his equipment, and then we use this to lower him back down to an area of safety. Okay. Now, when you see a rescue like this, you should always be aware of the fact that that is applicable if you have an area of safety, okay, or point of safety here, and your casualty is above that point, okay, suspended on whatever it may be. Okay, so a lowering rescue is for when your casualty is above the point of safety. Now that makes sense if you think about it. You want to lower the guy down, so he has to be above the point where you want to get have him end up. Okay, so lowering rescues, person above the point of safety. Then we have lifting rescues. Okay, in this case it's a 3-to-1 rescue system. Now again, lifting / lowering, because we have a get my thing. We have a descending device here as well, so in actual fact you can lower this system as well, and you can use it in the same way we discussed on the previous one. You can use this pulley system to lift the guy up slightly, take him off his equipment, and then lower him back down to the ground, or you can use this system to lift the guy up to wherever you need him. So with this configuration here, with the rope grab and pulley connected, you can lift him until this configuration hits your top of your system. Then you can reset that back down and keep lifting until the guy is where you need him. Now, you might be ahead of me here, but this applies to when the point of safety is below your casualty. Okay, so the guy's fallen off of something and you want to get him back up. Okay. Now, again, obviously, in a scenario where your casualty is below the point of safety, a lowering rescue won't work. So imagine if there was water with a shark or something in there, then lowering the guy down would do more harm than good, to be honest. So for lifting rescues, the guy is below the point of safety. Okay. Next up, we have an example of a lateral or side-to-side rescue. So the image here is a horizontal cableway. Okay, now I hope you can see the jump in complexity from the normal lifting lowering rescue systems to something as complex as the side-to-side or horizontal cableway. Okay, now the idea behind this is that these two gray ropes are your main lines. So your casualty is suspended on these two pulleys, so he'll be connected here. Typically, rescuers use this with a stretcher of some sort. So his weight is distributed between these two gray ropes. We have one for mainline, one for backup. If that line should break, the other one should be there. And then, well, in this case, that's your mainline, that's your backup. But the main idea here, then these two systems on the left and right allow you to move this guy from side to side. Okay, so one thing that as we talked about earlier with the equipment, the personnel, and so forth, is a basic rescue such as this or this. You need 4 in basic rescue, then and 1 rescuer to operate this system. Okay, so 1 guy on his own can perform this rescue. Now, in a case like this, hopefully you'll see that you obviously need a guy to pull on this end and that end and this one. So all of a sudden this becomes a team rescue. You need more personnel than might be obvious at first. Also, you need a lot more equipment. So if you are ever in a position where these type of rescues become a requirement, or you need to do these rescues, please be aware of the complexity it adds to your site, and is obviously the level of competency needed by your rescuers to install a system like this correctly and use it safely. Okay, so we have our lowering, our lifting, and our side-to-side ones, and then of course we have a combination system as well. So in this case, it's a diagonal cableway. So you have your main line, your backup, main line, this one, and your backup line there, with your tag line and its backup line here. So in this case, your casualty will also be suspended on those 2 pulleys, but now you can move from side to side as well as up and down. Okay, so we are looking at a combination of your lateral rescues and your lifting and lower rescues. Okay, so it might look less complicated in this image than this one, but it is still quite a complex system and does require as well a team as well, more than 2 people to operate correctly and safely. So these are the 3 typical, or 4, sorry, typical systems that you can consider. Now, the specifics of which type of system you use, it doesn't have to be a diagonal cableway or horizontal cableway or 3-to-1 rescue or ratchet rescue, but the principles hold. You'll either lift the guy, you'll either lower the guy, move him from side to side, or move him up and down and side to side. Okay, so depending on where your casualty is located or is suspended or incapacitated, we have to choose a rescue accordingly as per your site and task. Okay, so when we're planning for a rescue, we need to consider, first of all, the area. Where is this guy going to be if he falls? If he's incapacitated, what does this area look like? What system do I need? Do I need to lift him, lower him, side to side, as we talked about just now? Okay, so that's the first thing. You analyze the area, and you can identify areas where a person might fall from or off, and then you have to choose the correct corresponding rescue to get that guy to a point of safety, be it above him, below him, to his side. Then you have to ensure that whatever rescue you identify as the correct one, you then need to make sure that you have the anchor points available to install that rescue system. For example, if you look at your ratchet rescue, you need 1 anchor point. Here you need 2. Here you need 9. Okay, so it's very important that it's very easy to just say, oh, I'll use a cableway, or I'll use a horizontal cableway, or whatever it may be, but you don't have the area doesn't allow you to install that system. Okay, so then you either have to choose a different rescue, or you need to change your site. So you have to install the anchor points before you start working or anything like that. Right, and then obviously you have to plan for that rescue, the required rescue that you choose. So let's say you do choose a horizontal cableway, then you have to make sure that the SOP, the procedure of that rescue, is in place and everybody on site understands it, and they know how to use it and how to work together as a team to get that guy down to safety as quick as possible. That will involve the next point, the required competencies. You have to make sure that the guys on site are trained and competent to perform that given rescue. Okay, and then you have to have the correct equipment, and you have to have the correct number of team members on your site. So those last 3 points or 4 points actually, you can tie back to our legal requirement of CR102E, where you have to have the procedure, the personnel, and the equipment needed to perform a rescue. That's your main planning steps covered in those last 4 points. Okay, so personnel, and your procedure and your equipment. Okay, so again, depending on your area and the type of work that you're doing. Okay, so fall arrest rescues and rope access rescues are quite different and have different requirements and different implications for your team and for your site. So ensure that the area you're working on allows you to anchor the chosen system that you have, and that chosen system that you have is appropriate and effective for your site and for your task, and then that your team that you have on site is sufficient in both in number and in competency, and they have the correct equipment with them. Okay, so planning for rescue. Now I'll dip in and out between fall arrest and rope access rescue. Hopefully you'll see the appeal of both, depending on what type of work you're involved with, but mainly we are discussing principles, and the principles will hold for any system or any discipline of work at height. So what you see on the slide in front of you is an example of rigging for rescue. Okay, so that's your best case scenario, or the best planning scenario. So rigging for rescue involves that, as you see here, this guy's working on rope access, but the rescue system is already built into his system. So if that guy passes out or something goes wrong, all we have to do is we have to get another technician, a rescue technician up here to lower him back down using those two descending devices. Okay. In this case, if he has to go back up for lifting rescue, the guy is working on a system with a 3-to-1 pulley system already attached. So if he becomes incapacitated, we can lift him up back to safety. Okay, so this is the most proactive way of making sure your rescues are as easy as possible. Okay, now again, it's easier to rig for rescue during rope access, as the guy will be suspended on ropes and you can manipulate the ropes at the top of the anchor points. Whereas with fall arrest, it might be a bit more difficult, seeing as the guy will use shock absorbers climbing a tower. Then rigging for rescue becomes a bit more difficult, if not impossible. But it's something worth considering when you're doing your planning on your sites, is to consider if there isn't a way of including your rescue system from the beginning, before the guys actually start working, to have the guys already on site, the rescue system already installed within their working environment. So if something goes wrong, the rescue is very simple and very easy to use. Okay. Now, if that's not possible, you still have a few decisions to make. So again, using the rope access example, on the left, you'll see the rescuer and the casualty are using the same set of ropes. Okay, so the rescuer is climbing on the backup line of the casualty. The casualty main line is the rescuer's backup line. All these kind of technical details, don't worry about that for now. I just want to show you the principle. Or a rescue like this, where the guy is using his own set of ropes separate from the casualty. Okay, now, if you can imagine a guy falling, the anchor points there, whatever he's connected to, might have taken a shock load, might be damaged, or you might just not prefer to share a 2-person load on an anchor point, or whatever anchor point you're using. In that case, a separate rope system is obviously a lot easier and a lot safer to use, but it's more gear intensive. You have to have extra set of ropes, and you have to have the space and the area to, or you have to have the space and the anchor points available to use that, or to implement a system like this. Okay, so pros and cons. This one is safer in terms of splitting the load between anchor points, but it does require more equipment. However, the left-hand one is sort of higher risk, sharing the load. And of course, on the left-hand side, it implies the rescuer coming up from beneath the casualty, where this one, the guy can come from above as well. So again, depending on your work area, if the casualty is suspended somewhere there and there's water or something beneath him, then this rescue on the left-hand side, where the rescuer climbs up from the bottom, won't work. You have to have something like on the right-hand side. So again, when we look at the area of work, we have to discuss, or have to decide, how will we work and what type of rescue is possible or not. Okay. Next up, an example of, how can I put it politely, insufficient planning. So let's say your worker was on this rooftop edge area. He misjudged his work restraint system and he tumbled over the edge, hit his head, passed out. Now he's suspended over the edge of this area. If you were to only have a ratchet rescue kit available for that site, because that's what the guys have been trained on and should be fine. I hope you guys can see that, first of all, having only this, the rescuer won't be able to reach the casualty to connect that rescue system to him, first of all. And secondly, if that ratchet were to go over that edge, you won't be able to lift the guy due to the friction and due to the damage that sharp edge might cause to your ratchet rescue, or your rescue ratchet, sorry. Even worse, if this was your area of safety, meaning it was a lifting rescue, then with this system you'll only be able to lift the guy 1 meter, 1.5, depending on your ratchet. So if that distance there was greater than, let's say, 1.5 meters, you won't be able to lift the guy high enough for him to reach the point of safety, right? So in that case, we have to start looking at different systems. So on the left-hand side, far left, you'll see a 3-to-1 rescue. So that allows us to lift the guy. But again, if we configure it like this on the left, we still have the issue of connecting that to the guy's harness. There are telescopic link sticks out there that allows you to work at a distance, but with something like this, it becomes a bit more tricky. You have to connect the pulley and the knot, and your rescuer also then has to stand at the edge using the link stick to reach the guy, which puts him in a higher risk situation as well. So not ideal. Never mind the sharp edge issue we have here. The second option is we use the same system, but now we put some edge protection there for the rescue system, but we still have the issue of connecting it and your rescuer putting himself in danger on the edge there. Okay. Best case scenario, in my opinion, for this, if you have to lift the guy, is use the different configuration for the 3-to-1 system. Now the rescuer only has to connect the one carabiner to the D-link instead of these two. Edge protection, and the rescuer can then, of course, the rescuer will still be in a position where he has to connect, but he'll be there for less time, and then we can lift him from there safely as well. Right. So again, I hope you guys understand that the idea of just saying, well, we have a rescue kit and the guys are trained on that, go to any type of site and do any type of job is not sufficient. Okay. Depending on where you can work, where you can fall, you have to adapt your rescue plan and your rescue system to allow any type of rescue to be performed. And this is a very basic example just to demonstrate the fact of how different systems can be used to rescue somebody, or how different systems can impact your site and be insufficient. Because if you were stuck in this situation, for example, then you either have to leave the guy there or do something dangerous or stupid to get the guy back up. Right. So proper planning, always think of stuff like sharp edges, those kind of environmental hazards that your area might impose on your rescue system as well. Okay. Then we get to stuff like monopoles, which is also always a hot topic for the telecoms guys, especially now, with regards to how do I rescue somebody within a monopole. Now, it's always a difficult rescue. There are many different theories and plans you have to make. And again, it depends how high up the pole you go, how big the guy is climbing inside, all those kind of things. So I won't give you a rescue SOP in this masterclass. I'll just talk you through the principles. And then if you need one of these, you can feel free to contact us at info@gravitygh.co.za, and we'll put you in contact with one of our experts, and we can develop a rescue plan for you and train you guys on that specific rescue as well. Okay, so again, if you have the issue with the monopole rescue, to start there, is if you have two guys in the tower, depending on which of them fall or becomes incapacitated, that depends on how your rescue is going to go. So in this case, if the guy on the bottom falls, then it's sort of an easier rescue, only if the top guy has a rescue kit with him. So you can imagine if he was up there with no rescue kit, the guy on the bottom passed out. Now the top guy is stuck because he can't climb down past the casualty to go and fetch a rescue kit to rescue him. So in this case, part of your work SOP would be that the first guy going up has to have the rescue kit with him and be able to perform the rescue on your casualty from the top. Okay. Second case, the guy on the top falls. Now the guy at the bottom has to perform the rescue. Now this becomes quite a bit more involved in terms of how to connect that system and how to get the guy down, but it is doable. But again, special training is needed and a lot of practice to do it quickly and safely. Now the principle I want to highlight here is how the work SOP will influence the rescue SOP. If you do not tell this guy on the top to take the rescue kit with him, he is in quite a dangerous position if the guy at the bottom should block his way down. Okay, same thing here. If this guy on the bottom does not know how to perform this variation of a rescue, then he can't help his buddy who's fallen above him. Right. So when you are in difficult situations or risky situations like this, always contact a subject matter expert with regards to rescue and make sure that you have the correct work SOP as well as the correct rescue SOP for your site and for your task. Okay, going to a site like this with a normal ratchet rescue can work, but only under certain circumstances. So it's not wrong to have it there, but you should be aware of the implications if something goes wrong and doesn't go to plan as we practice during training. Okay, so again, if you're in a situation like this, please contact a subject matter expert like Gravity Training, and we'll be more than happy to help you with your rescue planning and training for special circumstances. Now, on that note, with the rescue plan changing your work SOP, so I quickly go back to the rope access guys. Now, for those of you who don't know, we require 2 guys on a rope access site, and one of them has to be level 3. During level 1, you are trained how to rescue a casualty off of a descending device such as that. Okay, you are not shown as a level 1 how to rescue somebody off ascending equipment such as that. So the level 3 on site can rescue a guy off of a descender or off of ascending equipment. But what if the level 3 becomes incapacitated? That would mean the level 1 can't rescue him because he's on ascending equipment. So then what it means for you is either you have to then say, well, I will never have a level 1 and level 3 on site. I'll only have a level 3 and level 2 on site, because level 2s can do that rescue as well. Problem solved, they can rescue each other if they do straight up and down type work. The other option is that you specify that your level 3 is never allowed to be on ascending equipment. He's only allowed to be on descending equipment when working, so that if something does go wrong, the level 1 can rescue him. So your rescue plan might not change. You still have your level 1 rescue of a descending device rescue, but now your work SOP has to change to compensate for the competencies of the guys on your site. Okay, so that's also an option, and we alluded to it earlier as well. So main thing that you have to remember here, or in a case like this, and as I said with the monopole situation as well, is that your rescue competencies and the rescue implications will affect your, or may affect your work SOP, and it's sometimes easier to change your work SOP to allow your rescue your rescue plan to be effective as possible. All right. Again, with rescues like this, sorry, this is just an example of a more complex horizontal cableway rescue. Now we get to stuff like the amount of people that you need on your site, the anchor points, the strength of those anchor points, the angle between these two ropes. The bigger that angle, the more force you put on your anchor points. Therefore, your anchor points have to be stronger. You have to have rescue on this side. You have to have at least one, if not two guys on this side. Sometimes if this guy's in a stretcher, you need a guy connected here as well as the stretcher man to apply first aid and to make sure the guy is secure in the stretcher and remains there. So all of a sudden this becomes a massive team rescue, and it's extremely complicated to plan for. So this isn't something to be taken lightly and just to be put into a fall protection plan or a risk assessment. So, well, if the guy falls there, we'll just do this horizontal cableway thing without the proper training and the proper equipment on site. Okay. So with a rescue like this, these cableway rescues, diagonal and horizontal, they are applicable for rope access and for arrest sites, depending. Most of these cableways that you see here do have their origins in mountain rescue, for example, where the casualty had to travel a large amount of a large distance over valleys and hills and what. So they are complicated and they are convoluted to set up, and you have to keep your wits about you in order to assemble a system like this effectively and efficiently. So with any system like this, please be aware that it does require extra training and extra equipment. Okay, and also I would recommend that you contact an SME before you decide on a system like this, because there might be a simpler option. Again, as we just discussed, maybe change your work SOP where a guy doesn't get into a position where this will be required. Right, it does complicate a site quite severely. Okay, that was just for me to draw you a few pictures. If you had any questions about rescues, and if we had to kill some time to plan, what I will say on this is we spoke about it with the low-level heights masterclass. Again, please go and check YouTube if you need it, or if you want to go and see it. And we discussed it with the anchor point masterclass as well. So if you are on a rooftop or on a site, and in the anchor point masterclass, we discussed that if your anchor point is there and you need to work here, that becomes an issue, because now that length of your work restraint or lanyard or whatever you use means that if you take a step to the right here, you'll fall off and you'll hang there quite far down the edge of this building, okay? Which is obviously quite serious. That now complicates your rescue quite severely. Whereas if you have your anchor point there and anchor point there, the guy can now work there, but he is not allowed to cross into that exclusion zone there. Okay. So as a risk assessor, as a fall protection plan developer, it is your duty to establish exclusion zones, all those kind of things, as we discussed in the low-level heights masterclass. And if this employee, technician, worker, whoever, obeys that exclusion zone, he is competent in using his work restraint system, he understands that, all those kind of things, then a rescue should not be necessary because you would not take a step over and fall off the edge. In this case, you can have exclusion zones there as well, but setting up your work restraint system like this is just poor management. So this is the ideal. We can have horizontal lifeline. We discussed all these systems in the low-level heights masterclass. So in this case, as I said, if the guy's competent and he obeys the risk assessment and he obeys exclusion zones and he knows how to use his equipment correctly and so forth, rescue shouldn't be necessary. Okay. However, we always assume that something can go wrong and we then have to plan for a rescue. So in this case, when you go to site, ensure that your anchor points allow you to perform the rescue that you need. You can reach your casualty, you can anchor your system correctly, all those kind of things. Okay. So always plan for worst case scenarios when it comes to rescues and work at height. Okay, that's just a quick example of anchor point management as well. Again, there's a masterclass on anchor points, there's a masterclass on low-level heights, there's a masterclass on full protection plan development, rigging and gear inspection available on YouTube as well. Okay, so what do you need as a company? Obviously, get yourself a competent full protection plan developer to develop these risk assessments, to develop these rescue plans with a competent expert, to ensure that you cover all your bases on your site. Get yourself a implementer to implement the full protection plan, to ensure that he goes to site, making sure everything is there, the guys have the correct equipment, the correct guys are on site, you have enough rescuers, all those kind of things. And then as for the rescue training, a full rest and basic rescue course, as you guys might be familiar with, covers the ratchet rescue we talked about, the basic lowering rescue. Then we have the advanced full arrest rescue course, which goes into a few of those cableway systems and stuff we talked about. Very enjoyable course, but it's quite tough. So it's not for the inexperienced. Let me put it like that. And then, of course, your level 2 and 3 rope access courses mainly focus on advanced rope access rescues as well. Level 3 more than level 2, of course, but those are your options for rescue training. If you need them, please contact bookings at go.gh.co.za and get your spot so your guys can be on site and know what they're doing and keep each other safe as well. Okay. I scheduled another team coffee break just before the Q&A. I am aware that we are running a bit late. Sorry about that due to the late start. So I'll give you guys another short 5-minute break to get your questions in. I haven't received any questions as of yet. So that might be that you guys don't have any, or that you're waiting for this opportunity. So please do feel free to contact me. If we come back after the break and there are no questions, I'll give you guys our contact details again, and then we can end it there. So thanks, guys. See you. Get those questions in, and see you guys in 5 minutes. Right, welcome back, guys. I didn't receive any questions, I don't think. So if you do have any, please feel free to send them in now. Otherwise, I'll just quickly run through the last bit of contact details and where you can reach us if you do have any questions afterwards, and if you want to get in contact with us. So let me just share this slide with you again. So just to reiterate, if you do have any questions after this, please do send an email to info@gravitygh.co.za. If you want to book any of those courses I mentioned, do contact bookings@gravitygh.co.za. Otherwise, for our price lists or equipment, anything like that, you can visit our website. And then for if you need supervision, or if you need a team to come and help you with installations or something that is perhaps beyond your scope, or if you don't have the personnel with the correct competencies currently in your employment, contact Gravity Access as well. They'll be more than happy to assist you with installations and access solutions to make your life and your rescues especially a lot easier. That's something we pride ourselves in as well, is the solutions that Gravity Access do offer. Makes rescues quite a lot easier due to the efficiency of those systems. And then Gravity Gear, of course, if you need any rescue equipment, if you need any work at height equipment, do feel free to contact them as well. And then for those of you, again, apologies for the late start this morning due to those technical difficulties, but we will upload the full recording of this masterclass onto YouTube as well. So if you follow us on Facebook, you'll get a notification when that's live, and then you can send this to any of your colleagues or employees that have missed this one due to that late start. So keep in touch. If you have any questions, you can also send them via Facebook. I'll keep an eye on Facebook for the rest of the day as well. If there's something you might have missed, or if you want to have me explain something again, I'll be more than happy to do it there as well. So at Gravity Group on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. And then we'll see each other again. All right. Thank you very much for your attendance and your patience, guys. Again, apologies for the technical glitches this morning, but I think we recovered well, at least. So thank you very much for your patience and for your attendance. And we'll see each other again in 2 weeks' time. We'll do our next one. If you have any suggestions or comments, please do send them through as well on social media or mail. And then if there are any topics that you would like us to discuss, if you want us to talk about something that you need some help with, send us a mail, send us a Facebook message, something like that, and then we'll gladly see what we can do in terms of getting you guys the information that you need to make your site and your life safer and easier. Okay, thank you very much, guys. Stay safe. Again, good luck with this troubling times. I hope you guys stay safe and go well. Thank you very much for your patience and your attendance. Thank you very much. Have a good day.